Everyone, let's welcome Jessica Lynn Parsons and Katie Michels to Dragon Talk.
Yay! Thanks for having us.
So excited. You two are performers extraordinaire and role players on Dungeon Run.
Yes. For 2.5 years now, right?
We just had our 2 year.
Oh, right.
I know, it feels like it.
It feels like forever.
Into the future.
Yeah, April was 2 years. So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've talked to a couple of your castmates as well as your dungeon master. But it's really exciting to talk to you guys because the whole setup for this show, I think, was a little bit crazy for us when we were like, oh man, they actually cast it like it was. It wasn't just friends getting together and rolling dice and they're like, yeah, let's put it on the thing. But you guys actually followed, some of the old back page ads to audition for this, right?
Yeah. I know that on Morgan's, when he was on with you guys, he kind of explained how intense and crazy that was. But we can definitely say, especially after passing the 2-year mark, that we became best friends almost instantly. Not only was it good casting, but it was just, they just knew who had good chemistry. And we're so grateful that bled over into real life. And now we're all very close.
So did you, now, I remember talking about the casting and it was like blowing our mind, how auditioning for like Dungeons and Dragons, but did any of you know each other?
No, I think that's the wild thing is I think they have like casts in D&D shows, but I think I'm the only one that I know of that it's like we were complete strangers to each other. I don't think any of us knew each other at all.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. That's the power of D&D, right?
Right.
Like to be able to bring,
I
these people together and then just have those bonds forged.
Well,
that's kind of what we hear when we talk to people who are like, oh, what was your first experience? They're like, well, I'm still playing with my gaming group for 30 years. And it feels like you guys artificially in some ways, but now it's still the same thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what's bizarre is that because of our special circumstance, we got to know each other via our characters for more hours, many more hours than we did one-on-one personal time. So that's kind of an extraordinary way to get to know a group of people. Spending 4 hours a week playing pretend, using funny accents, and maybe 2 to 3 hours of FaceTime, of real life time.
Are you ever, be honest, you don't have to name names, but is there anyone you're like, oh, I kind of like your character better?
How dare you?
Can I say that about myself and myself?
We can all say that about ourselves.
There's many weeks where I'm like, just be like Lily this week, Katie. Just be like Lily.
It is an interesting idea though, that like you say, like you are, performing and playing as these characters. That's how you're getting to know one another. Your characters are forming those bonds, but hopefully, and it sounds like in this case, those bonds transferred to real life, and you actually like the person behind the character.
It is interesting though. Not like there's anyone where I'm like, oh, I like your character more, but there are things where I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that's how you would react to. I don't have like a great example of this, but in my mind, you would have reacted like I'll go react, or like Behemoth would have reacted, but I guess that's not your jam. That's totally your character. So there is a melding more so than with other friend groups, I would say.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know how there could not be, because it's that we just jumped into playing 4 hours a week together.
Yeah. Well, how have your characters progressed over those 2 years? Because that's always a fascinating thing to me to be like, all right, well, when you start, you're not necessarily sure how, not even the mechanics work, but just like, what is this personality about? What is this backstory? And things come up over time. And I feel like not only you as people grow, but characters grow. So yeah, Jess, what tell us a little bit about your character and how it's progressed.
Oh man, Fahima's had
that's a pretty juicy question for you.
Yeah, she's had a pretty crazy arc. So my character, how we've started to describe her recently is the beginning of her adventure was basically her backstory. My character didn't have much of a backstory going in due to the nature of just how we wanted her to exist in the world. She's Genasi, which are very rare in our world. And she went from this kind of innocent, tough girl, I can do everything myself, making a lot of mistakes, making a lot of rash decisions, to coming into herself and having a really harrowing run-in with our big bad and being captured by her and learning some blood magic and sort of taking a darker turn, as well as learning more about her backstory, about her own history that she knew nothing about, which was challenging for me as a player. I know Jeff has talked about that in the past, but he knows so much more about my character than I do. And now, at least in the story, as we're playing it now, we're kind of coming closer together on that, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot.
Just a
Yeah.
quick
You've
trip down into
you've
blood
like grown
magic.
up on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. She started as a slightly obnoxious teen to somebody who has much more wisdom and thinks before she acts much more. Although she's still a fire genasi. She's still got that fire in her
Can't lose
to
that.
just go.
Has this been sort of an organic evolution, or was this something that you and Jeff had talked about early on?
Oh, yeah, totally organic. I mean,
Cool.
he did know that the big bad had an interest in Fahima. Her name is the Ashen Mage. But I didn't know her getting captured by her and learning spells from her and being tempted by the dark side was not premeditated, at least not by me. I don't know. I have to ask Jeff about that.
He doesn't really tell us any premeditated. Like, we are surprised every week by what's
Yeah.
happening.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What
what about
about
you,
you?
Katie? How has your character progressed and changed over the 2 years plus that you've been doing this?
She's more realistic now. Lily came from like a beachy island and was, I think actually everyone is pretty much a brand new adventurer technically in our party, though some people have more like real world experience. But she comes from an island called Bingle, which is like a vacation island basically, and decided to go out and be an adventurer. And she's super glass half full, and she still is, but I would say she's become a little more, over the course of the years, become a little more aware of the real give and take of the world, I guess, and that everything can't be solved through like, hey, let's chat it out, which is her general strategy, is talk it out. Doesn't always work. So that has definitely been something that I think is somewhat recent, actually, in the last like little bit, where she's getting a little more like, all right, no, we have to fight sometimes when I don't want to fight, but that's the only option. So
She usually just wants to, we can resolve this through conflict resolution.
yeah.
Over a Mai
Communication's key.
Tai.
Yeah,
She comes, from that laid back vacation community.
really
Nothing that
does.
can't be solved.
She
with a happy
really
hour.
does. And then she's a rude awakening when you're in the real world. Blood magic, she's still not great with blood magic, though. Yeah, that's it. That's a thing.
Hey, there's still time.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime Fahima uses it, she's like, are we sure we're going to do that? We're going to go down that path?
Fahima has a healing spell where she has to sacrifice her own blood using necromancy magic to heal, and we're always like, Lily, should I be doing this? Can you heal, or am I gonna?
Lily will
Lily's
do
always like, no,
everything in her
no.
power to heal. Like, let me
I
short
still
rest.
got spell
Like,
slots.
I got spell slots. I will use them for this, so you don't have
Oh.
to do that.
But Fahima's always ready. She's like, can I? Should I? Is it time? I can do it. Say the word.
Always ready to help.
I
I'm
love that.
feeling, I
So
think,
here's the how much of that growth is through you got the storytelling of the thing, or the fact that we were also dealing with so much real worlds, forcing us to do different things and act differently. I mean, even the show itself, you guys have had lots of tribulations and needing to go to remote and all that stuff. Like, how much of that informed your characters, do you think?
Consciously or subconsciously? I think subconsciously. I definitely think there was a couple weeks where we're like, hey, all these episodes were really sad. We need to maybe have something upbeat next week, which we don't usually pre-plan things, but I think they're. Do you remember that, Jessica? I feel like we had a couple times where we're like, wow, that episode, 2 episodes in a row, literally everyone on the show was crying at some point.
Yeah, I do remember having chats afterwards being like, maybe we should try to be a little more upbeat next episode.
And I'm
shopping
sure
episode or
yeah. I think we actually literally did that one episode. we're gonna go to a market and get supplies because we haven't done a shopping. Like, so we literally went and did retail therapy and I don't think it was consciously aligned. At least my opinion is I don't think it was consciously aligned with the world, but I think subconsciously D&D has a way of like, I don't know. You're playing a character, but it is very personal. So
I will say that I think overall in real life, I was humbled and I feel like I came out a little wiser and a little more grounded. And I definitely saw that in my character. I do remember kind of looking back and thinking that a lot of the growth that I saw in my character was due to me growing as a person. And it lent itself to some more grounded decisions as my character.
that makes sense.
Yeah. You usually hear about the bleed the other way, the things that your character does, kind of how that informs you, but the real you was informing your character's, part of your character's growth.
I think mine was always going to be opposite because my character was very innocent and new at everything. So as I've been playing her, I've always wanted her to be a little bit more like me, to grow up a little bit, to learn.
I love a D&D character trying to be like the person playing them.
I know. I aspire to be like my player.
I know.
You never hear that.
No, it's the other way around.
Go ahead, Shelley.
So, Katie, did you have D&D experience before you started
Not
with the Dungeon
really.
But Jess, you did. You have a history with.
Jess was already a master at it.
No.
So what was that like for you? And actually, like, what made you even answer this call in the first place?
Great questions. The first one was I actually showed it to my husband, and I was like, "Hey, you should do this."
Oh.
And at that time, because he's played D&D forever since he was a kid, and so I had literally played, like, guested on a game of his twice, 2 different games, and he was like, I can't do that. But he's like, I think you should do it because it says you don't have to have, they said in the instructions, you don't have to have D&D experience. We want good storytellers, and improv experience is required. And I had done improv for a long time. And so I was like, well, I mean, okay, I'll audition. Like, I'm sure this is going to be I'm going to be out of my depth, but I'll try it. And ended up getting cast. And
who were your characters? I'm so curious for somebody who
I played Lily, but Lily was a forest gnome. It was very similar, actually.
But in the initial audition, they said bring a couple characters, and I remember I had to go through a couple of my characters, like I am Brick, I'm Kira Tavistanya, and kind of like do all these different voices and characters for a guy standing behind a tripod who didn't know anything about D&D.
That was very funny. The casting director was a saint because I was like halfway through like a wild monologue about how Lily was a bouncer at a bar and like it, and I was like, do you play D&D? And he's like, nope, I'm learning a lot about it today.
Oh my God.
He just got all the great stuff from Jess.
Yeah, I was like, you're not even learning about D&D. You're just watching people do wild character voices.
This is just like a sketch audition at this point.
It was very funny to sit. It was such a classic LA. You're sitting in the waiting room and the walls was, the wall was paper thin. It was like there was a curtain between you. So there was like 4 people ahead of me and listening to like the guy right before me was doing like this really intense, like deep voice. And then like, they only had me do one character. I don't think I had to do multiple characters, but some people did because I definitely heard that happen. So it was very funny. Yeah. So yeah, I ended up getting cast and I had crazy imposter syndrome and I didn't know how to like broach the subject of like, you guys know that I don't really know this game super well, right? Because I was worried. I was like, was I such a good actor that they had no idea? I flatter myself. And then I had my first lunch with Jeff. He's like, so we get that you don't really know what you're doing. And I was like, okay, great. I don't have to say it. You did. But I mean, in the audition, I think at one point they were like, what's your what's your class? And I was like, neutral, good, chaotic good. And she's like, no, your class. And I was like, oh, okay. Level 10 or 3 is like your class. And that was in the callback. And I was like, I went and told Jake, and he thought it was so funny. And I was like, they're not going to call me back after this, because it was literally, they cycled through 5 times until the person next to me pointed on my sheet what they were asking, where it says class.
There's always someone helpful there who can help out.
I know.
Yes.
But they were very nice. But they really, like Jessica said, they weren't casting people for their D&D knowledge. Right. They were casting people for the chemistry and the group storytelling aspect, because I think what they were looking for was people who had that give and take, because that's what's important when it's important in any D&D game, but then especially if you're doing it for a show and recording it and wanting it to be enjoyable for a viewer.
Yeah, because the viewer can suss that out immediately. If there's people talking over each other, if somebody tries to say something and somebody cuts them off, if there's not yes-anding happening, you just know right away seeing that. So we have to gel.
Yeah. So that was really what I think the whole, like the callback experience was. They literally had us go in different groups. There was like 30 of us at the final callback, I think. And they just like switched us out and had us sit at a table for like 5 minutes at a time.
And then do what at the table?
So Sweet Jeff had to do
Sweet Jeff
had to do one for the callback. He did the same 30-minute adventure.
Okay.
I think 20 times or something wild like that. And then they were like, just do more of it. He was like, what? So we just like, he just made it up. I think Jeff just made that up on the fly.
Wow.
Which is wild also. But we just played. We were in a situation and we just had to play. And it was, the wild thing was we would switch out. So like if I was there and they're like, all right, Katie, we're going to swap Jessica in for you. And Jessica sat down. Jessica would sit down and be like, all right, give me a quick cliff notes of what's happening. Like very quick. Okay, let's jump into the story. So you were literally being like swapped in and out of.
And that is a very improv thing too, where you're just like tap on the shoulder and you're like, all right, you just go in and you're like, all right, you don't even have to assume anything. It can change right after that. And so that was a great way to kind of get that, that feel. Can they hang?
Yeah. It truly
together?
Was what I think was the question.
Yeah. So you guys built up that chemistry, after that process, and then in person playing together on the studio, which always looked amazing. I loved the animatronic mind flayer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We miss it. It was amazing. It was a dream come true. I remember when the first model came out, I could not believe it was real life. Having played on, I think the highest production quality that I had played with was my friends had built this amazing custom. You guys have talked with Kelly D'Angelo, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was at her house. My friends and her built a custom gaming table with a TV screen in the center with glass on top to do the maps. And that blew our minds. So going into a studio where they had an artist render a huge 3D model map. I couldn't comprehend it. I think I cried.
We cry a lot on the show. If you're not getting that from this interview, there's been a lot of tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. Definitely the tears.
Now we're back. We're remote and we're producing the show ourselves. So we're back to 2D maps, but we still have each other and our imaginations.
So how did that? I mean, Shelley and I have done this in microcosm where we would record in person and luckily have people into the office to do things, and it's a lot easier to get social cues that way, but it's very different when you're looking at screens and people, and obviously the entire world is dealing with this. But how did you guys try to keep that energy and camaraderie and improv nature while also having this very artificial 2D portal between you and your friends?
It was an adjustment.
Yeah.
And we did lose some aspects of little side gestures that we would do to one another. I think that my character's relationship with Morgan Peter Brown's character was so close, partly because we were sitting next to each other and we had a lot of physical interaction. So we don't get that anymore. but I think we have gained a better sense of pacing because everybody is right in front of us. We can see everybody's faces and we can pay attention a little bit better that way.
And you have to listen, like, just because, again, talking over people on a Zoom or on a online is even more intense somehow than in a studio, and they can't switch a camera away from it. So you just have to pay attention in a very different way. But I agree. I think that's the biggest thing that I miss, funny enough, is even aside all the production value, is the fact that I sat next to Ron Ogden, and I think our character's relationship was because of proximity. We were right next to each other. So we would have these little side conversations that, whether the camera saw it or not, really informed a lot of our characters.
I will say one of the things that I do love about being remote, though, is that I have to take copious notes when I play D&D because I will not remember it otherwise. And I love just being able to Control F, find anything in my notes, all digital. It's such a boon.
And
take
using
notes digitally?
Yeah, type it out. Yeah. Well, because
Wow.
we're playing, here on the computer, so I can just take everything digitally. I can categorize. I can kind of map it out.
Having your character sheet up in front of you too while playing is nice.
Yeah.
Versus down. I don't know. Little things.
Have any of the relationships between your characters changed now that you don't have those little side conversations, or do you have to try harder at some of the things, or maybe is any of that worked into the story in some way?
I think it's like for Uggo and I, who sit next to each other, I will say I think a lot of our little interactions were little like asides that were really looks of just like, I hear you, I see you on this thing. So I do think I've tried to make a more conscious effort to have those little scenes with Uggo that don't need to be a huge story plot, but just work them in and not make it feel like it's taking over the main story, which has been a challenge. But yeah, I do think that is like the biggest change in that sense.
It's hard when you try to even us trying to get eye lines together for this, right? Like, it's hard to communicate that to the audience that, like, when I'm looking up here, I'm looking at Jess, or that,
Right.
like, and I wish there was a simpler way to do that. Maybe that's the next technological advance to come to video conferencing, is like where your eye line is going, people know that you're looking at them and not at themselves or whatever.
Yeah, right? Because I was just going to say, on iPhones, didn't they do something where they change your eye line so when you take selfies or when you do FaceTime, it puts your eyeballs up on the camera?
Oh, whoa.
Oh, I didn't know
in
that.
post. I think something like that exists. I don't think I have it on my phone, but yeah, that just makes me think that eventually you'll be able to control all of that in post. Where do the eyeballs go?
Right?
I think
It's
even
a
when I take
filter.
my own pictures of myself, all my selfies, I'm looking down. Like I don't know.
slightly down.
I still
Yeah.
don't know how to look at the camera to save my life. Yeah.
And I do this for a living.
Yeah, this is literally my job. That's so funny. We do have a really amazing tech person, and I think that is something that goes unnoticed a lot. Who does a really great job of, if Jessica and I are having a conversation, of going to a 2-shot of us, and that does really help with the theater of the mind and like understanding who's talking to each other, even though we're looking at the same camera. It just helps that it's just these two faces versus seeing all of the cast.
That is, that's great. And that is, do you get that back to you? Like, so that you know that you're in a 2-shot, or does that all happen on the stream alone?
Yeah. We can see now what's being pushed out to everyone, which is really nice.
That's cool.
That is helpful.
And you guys are producing this yourself now. You're no longer on the platform that, provides us with the elixir of wakefulness.
Wow, that was an awesome way of describing it.
Yeah.
Without saying the name. Yes, we are self-producing on Twitch. It's been such a journey and a lot of work, but we're doing all of the promo, all of the Katie can talk about the production aspect of it. We have a Patreon that we manage where we do weekly rewards. So we're doing a lot more all around work for the show, but ultimately it is fulfilling to be more than just a performer. Now we have a stake in the show, a personal stake. We can make creative decisions ourselves, which is really fun. We've had Satine Phoenix and Amy Vorpahl on as guests, and we're looking to have a few more in the near future. So getting a little more involved in the Dungeons and Dragons community and being allowed to do that, having that agency is really important to us, and it's really exciting.
Yeah. And being on Twitch is exciting. The community there is really cool, and it is a different community. Like we definitely have people that came over with us, but we're starting to, meet new people within that community, and it's super strong. And I just think the D&D community in general is pretty rad.
Yeah.
We like to
Good
think so.
people. We think so too.
Yeah.
You did mention two of our favorites, people from the D&D community, Amy Vorpahl and Satine Phoenix.
Yes.
So was Amy, she was a guest DM for...
Yes, she DM'd her Candlekeep mystery.
She did?
Yes, it was so much fun. We did
Oh
a
my
2-shot, and Satine guested as her elf
Bard.
her elf bard. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's
it was so fun.
Were you surprised by the ending of Amy's adventure?
Well, we had kind of a weird ending to ours. Our paladin decided to keep the bad guy. I forget his name.
Spoilers for anyone who's doing this.
Oh yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't say.
Lower the volume.
Yeah,
Lower the volume.
spoilers. Decided to keep the bad guy below the fire of the rocket and say, "We're not leaving until you turn this off. We will all die if you don't move." And so, I don't know. I don't think that was supposed to happen because Amy's reaction was of utter shock and joy. So I'm not sure what is the ending supposed to be.
I mean, I guess whatever you make it. I guess that's an appropriate ending.
It is canon.
It
Yes.
was so fun to watch Amy DM her own story, though, because she said it was wild. It was a wild experience, and I can only imagine. She's like, it's wild to DM the words that you've written for something. It's just a different experience for whatever reason.
Yeah, right. And we talked a lot with her about how when you're writing notes for running an adventure, I mean, it can be on a page, right? You don't need necessarily even 16 pages worth of material. But when you're trying to teach someone else how to do it, then that's when you need that material. And so things needed to be expanded upon, and then having to go back when, after that process and then run it. I mean, that's got to be, your mind is working on all these levels of like, did I write this? Are these the notes that I had, or these notes that other people put in? It doesn't matter. We're just going to, and then, the input of the players changes everything. But she's such a great performer and comedic actor. And so,
And
I'm sure it was-
improviser.
yeah.
And what I love about her is like she was saying she's so transparent about that while streaming too, which I think makes it so much more fun. Be like, oh, this is wild. Okay, here's what we're doing. Like her process is projected in such a fun way that you can feel it, I guess.
Right.
It's very visceral.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. It's the type of comedians that let you see how this is the way this joke was funny.
Yeah, this is how we got there. Or like, yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, she's just such a treat, and both of them were lovely, and it's fun for us to play with new people because we play in our little group, and then it does change. We've done a couple side quests, and even playing different characters. Kind of, as Jessica said, we know each other through our characters so well, so when we switch that, it's very fun to see another side of these people that you feel so close to, but you're like, oh, you have this element to you, and just playing like a fire genasi, then she plays a little boy who is shooting rainbows, and you're like, this is totally different, Jessica. Like, it's such a treat. All through D&D.
I love how the through line of this interview too is like how your D&D characters can be shades of yourself, like the id and the ego and all this, like, how those come together and are separate. And you're totally right. Like, that's the best part about this game, is that it allows you to play roles, and you can choose those roles, and they will surprise you as well. And so they're part of yourself that you didn't even know was there can get explored. And that's so fascinating to me.
It is interesting to see the variance, at least within our group of the different characters, because there's some folks where they'll play different characters, and each one I immediately recognize as them. There's a really strong through line of personality. They're making similar choices because just that person's personality is very strong in all of their characters, whereas someone else will be radically different from character to character. It's just really interesting to observe.
It's like different performers have a type. They're like, oh, I always play the leading man or whatever. And some are just like, nope, I'm a chameleon. I'm the Daniel Day-Lewis. I will do no matter what you throw at me.
Are you Jennifer Aniston or are you Joaquin Phoenix? You know, are you Jennifer Aniston in everything, or are you a completely different person in every movie you do?
She's very different in Horrible Bosses.
Oh,
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Same hair.
Greg,
Same hair,
are you
though.
a Jennifer Aniston? Greg, is that what you're?
Yes,
Is that where you're sticking up?
exactly. I stand for Jennifer.
What would you say? Do you know what you are, Greg, Shelley? Or are you?
I have to always be the comedic. You know, I'm the instigator player as well as the. Like I will, take the piss out of the room with a joke or something like that. Like, you know, even when it's the most dramatic moment, I'll be like, oh, no. You know, so, but I'm also the person who wants to push the story forward all the time, generally. But I don't get to play as much, so I've been doing the dungeon mastering thing more, which means you get to be whatever you're into.
Everybody.
Yeah, to happen.
So you're a chameleon then. You gotta be
Yeah,
a little bit.
a little bit. But if I'm honest, I have to work at it. I have to work at being a chameleon because I think I would.
So you want to be a Jennifer Aniston. You want to be a Daniel Day-Lewis, but you are Jennifer
But
Aniston.
I am a Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
what about you, Shelley?
I think that's true for me as well. If I'm a Jennifer Aniston for a long time, then I will be like, it's time to be a Daniel Day-Lewis. I want to mix it up, and I'll start Daniel Day-Lewis, and then I can just feel the Jennifer Aniston taking over again. Because I just feel like my characters just tend to kind of have a type. And I think that I like to play characters that are either really naive or kind of shy and awkward and weird and don't talk a lot, because I think that's me as the player feeling intimidated, like I actually don't know as much as I want to know. So I'm just going to hide behind my character and be like, she doesn't know that. I mean, but she doesn't know that.
Yeah. I definitely do though.
She hasn't worked on the D&D brand for like 10 years.
That's why I made Lily like brand new and had no idea what the world was, because I was so scared of, like, I was like, I don't know how to do this. Jared always laughs at me at the beginning of playing. They'd be like, do a skill check, and I'd be like,
Oh, what?
like just like you could like see me like, I'm a performer and I'm fine, but like
Lily does not know what you mean by that. Please use different words when talking to Lily.
no, this is not. We're not talking to Lily. We're talking to Katie. Can you just roll a skill check for Lily? I was like,
Thank God for the multicam at that point, huh? You're like, cameras, let's go to B cam for a second.
Camera. Go to Jess.
You know, that's another
doesn't-
good
she
reason about playing online. And you having like the online dice
yes.
roller, because
Yes, and just
I don't need
Beyond
anybody
makes it
to like.
so easy.
You can't watch me on my character sheet and be like, wait, where's my athletic? Oh my god, where is? Oh my god, now I'm just like, 18. Yep.
Yeah.
Not to say I've cheated. I'm not saying I cheated. But I
Wow.
maybe have moved the game for faster by not having to search for that particular die.
If you really can't find something, you just gotta move on.
Yeah, just leave it up to the
Jennifer
universe.
Aniston and Daniel Day-Lewis would both agree on that.
Oddly enough, those are our guests next week.
Next week. Oh my
we're talking
goodness.
to both of them
God.
together about
Don't
their
show them this interview.
love of
Don't
D&D.
show them.
Wow.
Don't show them this one.
Both wonderful. It's just both perfectly acceptable types of
I love
characters.
that we're opening for
and
Jennifer
players.
Aniston and Daniel Day-Lewis on the official D&D podcast.
And I'm glad we're not following them.
Oh my gosh, can you
I
imagine?
wouldn't be able to.
The letdown, please.
Yeah.
Well,
I know. That was
They
the
will be
worst as a
now.
comedian when you're like, oh, here's Louis Black and Greg Tito. Oh. I'm not angry. It's not my
I'm
style.
not, that's your opener. I'm not angry. And so
happy to be here.
that's all.
I can talk about D&D in my set. That's what I can do.
Bards, am I right?
Yeah. I love so I want to go back to something you guys said earlier, because you only touched on it a little bit, but I love that idea of being performers, like having that experience of auditioning for this, and then having the zeitgeist of everybody making the show around you, and then okay, now it's our show and you get to make it how you want. And that's got to be so liberating as well as frightening at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, Katie, you've been doing some of the production stuff. So, yeah, what's that like? What has that been like taking, the stress of performing, but then also the stress of putting on the show and combining them into one?
It's a delicate balance, right? Because we were one person's show for a year and a half, and now we're our own show. And so I think the biggest thing we are trying to strike the balance between is we want to keep the spirit of our show the same, but what elements do we want to change, or where do we think we could, improve, or what things have we maybe wanted to improve but never had the ability to, but now we can. So that's kind of the conversations right now, is just like, where do we want to make sure we stay the same, and where do we want to like change, which is, I think, we're still figuring it out, because we kind of have a brand, but we can change it. But it is scary to change, because you don't want to. We're not going to all of a sudden become an X-rated D&D show tomorrow because we're PG-13 now.
And it's
we
familiar.
could, but it's not off the table, but it's not likely.
Dungeon Runner After Dark.
We have talked about doing an After Dark show at some point.
Where we can do swears.
Yeah, where we can do said like a true child. Where we can do swears.
We want to do the swears. Gotta wait till like 10 p.m. Do the swears.
The swears come out. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean, so when you're doing a weekly show, is it the cast kind of trying to promote it and get it ready, but there is also a production person who is doing the two shots, as you're saying. So how much are you involved in that part of it?
We're doing pretty much everything except the day of tech. So we have a person who's Sean, who's running our Twitch, just like switching and making sure that our mics are turned off once we go off air, all that kind of stuff, recording it, and then making sure gets uploaded. But that's everything else we do.
Yeah, Ron is he's been doing our animations, the visual assets. That was so hard for me to say. And I've been doing the graphic design for the show. Morgan and Katie have been producing. Jeff has been coming up with all of the odds and ends. He's the brain behind everything. And Jared's been running our Patreon and keeping track of the rewards. And we also have a show called The Cool Down, where 2 cast members, we commit every Monday to go over the show and answer questions from our viewers. And that's all produced ourselves too. Myself and Ron, and sometimes Morgan to do tech for that. So we're learning a lot.
It's lean and mean right now, but definitely the goal is to definitely get more people eventually to do some of that, I think, too.
Eventually, right?
Yeah, eventually. But it's a process. I
like the cool down idea. I mean, that's such a really great way to continue the engagement, right? Because you're not going to play more episodes a week. Obviously, it's tough to do even one on a weekly basis, but that's a nice way to kind of add some back and forth with the community. Have they responded and be like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear from so-and-so on the next day and that stuff?
Our community is so flippin' great. We're just really, really, really lucky. Flippin', I didn't do a swear, Jessica.
Not after
I marked
10.
it.
It's only 2 p.m.
It's 2 p.m. I can't
do it yet. Is there sunlight out, Katie? No swears.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's the rule. I know. They are so great. So now how we do it is we source questions actually for our cool down from our Patreon subscribers, which has been super fun. So they basically type in questions either about the past episode or the show in general, or just kind of whatever they want to know. And then 2 cast members will go on and answer those every week. And yes, they've been so great. And they're so involved and honestly probably more knowledgeable in the world of Iron than I am at this point. Like
certainly more. Because they've watched the episodes multiple times and they have a secret chat in the Discord where we can't see anything that they talk about, only Jeff can. So they go over theories and spoilers, and I'm sure they're putting the pieces together 5 steps ahead of us.
Oh, that's super cool.
I'm absolutely sure they are too.
There was something that happened recently. Oh, it was we we had a moment on one of our recent episodes where my character was in magical handcuffs for 2 episodes. And finally, when I met back up at the party, Katie's character Lily said, "Can't you just sit down and step through your handcuffs and get them off?" And Jeff said that the watchers have been saying to do that without me knowing for all of these 2 episodes. Just like, come on, why is she not thinking of this? And just talking about it. And when it finally happened, it was so embarrassing.
It was not. It was such a beautiful moment because that happens to everyone where you're like, oh,
yeah.
right.
Embarrassing in the best way.
I haven't watched the part of it because sometimes we split the party and so we don't know. There's definitely parts of the story where I don't know what happened to Jessica during all of this time. But from what you said, like you tried to get the handcuffs off in like wild ways also. Like
yeah, like trying to put my hands on a meat hook and banging it against a wall.
Yeah. Trying to get Kate Winslet to get an axe to cut him off.
God, if only I had a Kate Winslet to close her eyes and aim at my hands.
We've been watching a lot of Titanic.
That is the most unbelievable part of that movie. I will say.
She's coming on in 2 weeks, by the way, so we'll ask her.
My goodness.
She's also in like the Daniel Day-Lewis camp, like as a
very different.
Yeah. Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
all of her period flicks.
Me too.
Uh-huh.
Me too.
While we could go forever in the Kate Winslet filmography.
Don't open that box.
I'm just thinking of other actors who are chameleon or Anistons or Daniel Day-Lewis.
I love that we've coined this as being.
Yeah. Honestly, this is a new podcast, and now we do that.
Yep.
I'm down. I'm totally down. But you guys recently leveled up, right? You're at level 10 as characters. That's more power than any 2 people should have, in my opinion.
It's a lot.
Spoken like a dungeon master.
Thrilling. It is thrilling. And I'm really excited because Jeff and I have been working on almost all of my spells. The last couple of levels have been homebrew. And we try to homebrew as much as possible, all of us. And
blood magic.
The blood magic is all homebrew. So I'm pretty excited to premiere some new spells tonight and some new features that come with leveling up. And we have can we say? I don't know if we can say. Can we say,
yeah,
Katie?
this will go out in the future, so it'll already have happened.
Yeah.
Great. Yes. Okay.
We're time travelers.
Tonight, we are premiering new character art.
Yes.
The first time we've had official character art since we started the show 2 years ago. So they are phenomenal. They were done by Jason DeBitt, and they are so detailed. And he's taken little bits and pieces from moments throughout the show and added them as small details in the character. And we're so excited to show people.
Amazing. He's incredible too. Just chef's kiss. We have some really incredible artists in the community in general.
Yeah.
And also really cool.
That is cool to see.
Yeah.
It's
I think
cool
the
to
D&D
see.
community in general has really cool artists.
I mean, they're pretty creative.
Who would have thought?
I know. It's weird.
But it's so great that you have these official, glow ups, right? Because you guys have 2 years, 10 levels, lots of things have happened to your characters visually, as well as just the age of the years of the adventures is on there. So that's got to be so great to get this new, especially that you're doing it yourself, right? And this is your creative vision.
Yeah.
I love that you got to go back and get those official portraits.
How long has it actually been, though, in the world?
I know.
I'm
That's
pretty
time.
sure it's been like 2 days. No, it's been, but for real, I think it's only been a couple of months.
been months. But yeah, we were in a coma, or we were asleep for a couple weeks at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a wild thing for us to talk about. Sometimes we're like 2 years, and we're like, but for the characters,
It's only been a week.
5 months,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
We can't celebrate our characters' birthdays because they will never have them.
I
We
cast
gotta-
time warp. There you go.
Just to celebrate birthdays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
we'll
feels like
each
a
be able
one
to
shot right
celebrate one birthday for the entire campaign if it's coming up, right?
Say that it
We
is.
could do that. Yeah. We could say Fahima's birthday's next week.
I feel like Fahima's the only one we did. I think we did Fahima's birthday, right? Because Jared wrote me a poem.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Our rogue is our resident poetry writer, and he's incredible.
Yeah, he writes poems for everyone. It's really great.
Oh,
That creativity. That's what I love about this game. Right? You were mentioning how the community, how that just like becomes a part of the tapestry of things that have made around this story. And it's like, but it's make believe, but it feels so real now because there's all these little artifacts of artwork in the world reflecting it back.
And it's fun to like Jared didn't know that he was going to write poems when he made his character. That's something that came about as doing the show. And it's just, I think that's a really fun part about also being 2 years and like looking back of like, what did I plan and what is so much of it's things that evolved because of the story or circumstances or relationships.
There's so much creativity that has been produced out of doing the show. For whatever reason, I think maybe because the show in itself has been so creatively fulfilling and inspiring to all of us. We have so much art that's come out of it. Lily, Katie writes songs, sometimes on the spot during the show. They're always amazing. Like we said, Jared writes poetry. Ron has written beautiful paladin vows that have blown us all away. I write character diary entries regularly. And Morgan, who you guys spoke with, he's a lore nerd. So he goes deep into the lore of our story. And he's like our encyclopedia. I guess we don't have any visual artists on our team, people who can draw. But luckily, we have many of our watchers who can do that.
Yeah. And you're an incredible graphic designer and Ron's an incredible visuals creator, but not, drawing.
But how many drawers? Any painters?
No drawers.
Yeah.
No drawers. What is so Lily, are you what's your 10th level fun stuff that you've got going on?
I'm still deciding because that's how I do things.
Katie,
I know.
we're playing in like 4 hours.
I know. Everybody always makes fun of me, but I get this is not changed. I get overwhelmed by leveling up every single time. Because I forgot that I got magical secrets at level 10, which means that I get 2 spells of any class.
Yes.
Ooh,
oh my
that's
God,
gonna
what are you
take
gonna
some
pick?
time.
Any class.
What are you gonna pick? This is huge. This is where your character is going now.
I know. I'm thinking about taking counterspell as one of, or just in general, because I don't have that yet. And I think that's a really good thing. I have counter charm, but I don't have counterspell. So that's like my practical, this is a good one to take. But I don't know what fun ones I'm going to take yet.
Well, who is Lily? Is she more druidy, more paladin-y, more wizard? Does she want to take a step into the dark side?
I don't think she's dark yet. I don't think she's the dark side. Yeah.
Maybe water sorcerer?
Yeah, maybe. I was looking at some like telekinetic stuff I thought could be kind of fun.
Oh, you are the charmer.
Yeah, because Lily's whole thing is charm, deception. She talks her way out of everything.
Seriously.
Or into any city they want to go into. So I'm trying to
bard
find more
spells.
Yeah,
sound right up your alley.
Yeah. Would you have any recommendations, Greg?
I honestly, I would love the bard class, but I've only played low-level bards. I've never actually gotten them
They
up
get
to level 10.
powerful.
They do.
Because I just upped my proficiency on stealth and sleight of hand because you get to, at this level, you get to like double your proficiency on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my
You
modifiers
can get into
are-
anywhere.
I think I read someone was saying like you always roll well, and I don't always roll well, but the bard modifiers, that's like it's the jack of all trades thing.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I really love about being a bard is you are kind of like relatively okay at everything.
Right. And then I don't know if this is Lily's shtick, but there is I think it's a 5th level bard spell called Legend Lore.
Oh,
I think I read
yeah.
about that one last time.
So you find anything in the world and you're like, tell me the legends and stories about this plot man DM.
Oh,
tell me
Jeff's
all of
gonna
them. And
love
so,
it if
Yeah,
I take
drive
that.
your dungeon master crazy.
We
yes.
do have Morgan has sending and literally uses it like every long rest or short rest. So
He's
Jeff,
like, I'm going to write messages to all of my friends.
Oh.
but Jeff has to
NPC.
remember the voices, and it always blows my mind.
Oh yeah, he
Oh.
came up with we have a bad guy who rhymes, Urtenfurt, and he didn't know that Morgan was just gonna call him out of nowhere, and he made up rhymes on the spot. We haven't talked to we haven't talked to this NPC in months, I think. At that
It was
point.
like episode 3 that we talked to the NPC, and this was episode like 60 something that
Oh my
Morgan
God.
called him. I want to say, I mean, our fans are going to be listening and be like, it's episode 42.
Here's the link.
Yeah.
I remember when that happened. Jeff was, I think he was still in the studio, right? And I remember he kind of like leaned down with his hands on the table and thought for a minute, and then looked up and started to rhyme. It was incredible.
And that changed. Oh God, I love body language kind of changes
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that is one thing that is missing from the virtual aspect, is all of the running around we used to do. There was a lot of gesturing, but maybe that's part of becoming more grounded characters, is we're all focused right here. It's kind of like going from theater to film.
Right. But let's get back to theater.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
So are there any
theater.
thoughts of you guys, once everything vaccinated gets safe, obviously cost-wise, it's probably a hard thing to do studio time, but what are the plans for the future?
Would love all of us would love to be back in a studio, just because as much as I think there are a lot of beautiful things about being on Zoom together, and there's some really fun things
My notes.
yeah, your notes.
You could still have them. You could have a
all
computer
get
in front of you.
iPads. We're all going to
Yeah.
get iPads when we go back. I truly think I will get an iPad because I've gotten so used to using D&D Beyond now, and I really like it. But yeah, the biggest thing is the cost and space factor. We're based in Los Angeles, which isn't known for being like cheap real estate or having a lot of places. So that's the biggest thing we don't have as a group is we have a lot of skills, but we don't have a studio space.
Yeah.
So,
That is
yeah.
always the hard part.
but I think that would ideally we will figure out a way to do that. And I don't think it's off the table or out of question. It's just figuring out how we do that in a way that is feasible on our budget.
I think it's definitely part of our growth.
Yeah.
As we scale, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that.
Oh, go ahead, Shelley.
Sorry. And like I was thinking, like in real life, you're all like a D&D party because you were listing like all of the different roles that you each play and all of those.
We got so
You'll make
lucky.
it
We
work.
did not realize how lucky we got when we were like, oh, we're going to have to do a business. Oh, I can do this thing. Oh, I can do this thing. Like,
Very
Yeah.
well-rounded.
We
so
are.
lucky.
Yeah. That is hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fortuitous in many ways. And we've been so supported by, again, our community has been really great and patient with us as we get started back up again. And
I'm sure they're glad
And
to
still
have
making
you.
great stuff, right?
back up.
Weren't they contributing to the story with items and roles and things like that as well?
yeah, so they could send us advantages and disadvantages. And right now it's like a grand force of evil or a grand force of good. So there's team force of good, team force of evil, and they compete. And so right now it's that whatever team wins for the week, that team gets like an effect on the entire episode, or sometimes it's like the last one was force of evil. In the first battle we had for the first 2 rolls, every character had to subtract 2
Yeah.
Ouch.
from
Oh,
everything, and that
no.
was like we were already very depleted, so that was a very scary very scary force of evil because we were all like, I think I had like 3 spell slots going into that fight. It was, level 1 spell slots.
But yeah, again, as
Just
we
disguise
scale,
self over and over again.
we'll have more of those opportunities as well.
Yeah.
The more people we can get on our team to handle all of it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the biggest thing is the back end of it, making sure it doesn't take over the show in a bad way.
Right.
Yeah, because the
As
story
well
is
as your
number
lives.
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But and
'cause-
that's one of the things we're also evaluating of like, what do we change and what do we keep, and how do we keep this super fun for everybody?
Because work-life balance is very hard in this day and age, and it's important, right? Because you could very easily be like, I'm just going to spend all my life working on this campaign and this D&D show, and then realize, a couple months into it, you're like, I feel as depressed as, people who are working in the boiler rooms, so I
Yeah.
can totally understand that.
The boiler
for sure.
room, all the boiler room jobs out there these days, man. Depressing.
Yeah, and
Avoided
it's
those so
hot
far.
today, so maybe
Yeah.
that's why I was thinking about boiler room.
I know.
Yeah, we're just trying to avoid boiler room jobs.
Unless you love boiler room jobs, and then,
unless
follow
that's
your
your
bliss.
thing.
Might be peaceful.
Honestly,
Alone.
and speaking of the Titanic again,
I was just thinking that. It's full circle. We're back to Kate Winslet.
I was like, that job is straightforward. You know what you got to do. And
She
you're
almost
not
said it
dealing
down there.
You're not dealing in customer service. Like, I would take a boiler room job.
No. Yep. I have days when I think that actually sounds quite nice.
Yeah, you
Give me
burn some calories with sweat alone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
It's like doing
pores
hot
are
yoga
constantly-
right?
all the time.
Basically
People-
hot yoga.
People basically pay to be in a boiler room job now. But-
Wait a second, I've got a great idea for a business model.
boiler room. It's the new celebrity workout endorsed by Kate Winslet.
And Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh my
And
God.
Jennifer Aniston. Why not?
You'll never know it's them because they're such good actors.
That's so great. Well,
Okay.
thank you, both of you, for being here and talking through your characters. It's been a wild run for Dungeon Run.
Wild
for the
Dungeon
last-
Run.
Wow,
Yeah.
Dungeon Run. Thank
but
you for
we-
having us.
Yeah, it was such a
Thank
pleasure
you for
to
being here.
chat Dungeons and Dragons with you.
For sure. So, for everybody who's listening, what's the best way to find out about you personally, what you guys are doing, as well as the show? And let's go to you first, Katie.
Yeah, I'm the Katie Michels, Michels, at all the places, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. And then I'll just say the Dungeon Run is the Dungeon Run on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram. And that's where you can find us. And we also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/the Dungeon Run. And that is where you can support our show.
Yeah. You can find me at Jessica Parsons or at Jessica Lynn Parsons. And I also stream on my own Twitch channel that is called Hello Goodberry. And all the socials and links for that is Hello Goodberry. It is a D&D flavored variety Twitch channel.
It's awesome.
Nice. What are you playing now?
Oh, all sorts of stuff. We just started It Takes Two because I co-host with my friend Alex. And so co-op games are so much fun to play together. And we have a homebrew Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we're doing every Thursday called Yulithamore, College in the Sky. It's like a magical sort of Harry Potter-esque campaign. And Katie is playing in it as Snoop, the Eladrin rogue,
Monk.
right? Monk. Oh,
Yeah.
Shadow Monk. Yes, you're very
Shadow Monk,
roguish.
yeah. Well, it's because I'm a spy, but I also tell everybody I'm a spy.
Yeah, she's a terrible. She's a terrible spy.
I'm terrible.
First rule of being a spy.
That's
Don't
why she's
tell
going to
people.
college.
Gotta learn to be sneakier. Take those sneaky classes.
Well, we've got the perfect D&D product for that campaign.
Oh, really?
Coming up.
Yes, which will be announced by the time this is out there anyway. So
Oh my goodness.
Get it for Snoop.
it'll be very excited for for I'm
you
going to say
too.
it wrong. Yulithamore
Yeah.
in general.
Ooh,
A school.
I'm excited.
Could be very
Yes.
exciting.
Magic.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Do you guys play? We can say this, right? Because this will be out by then. Shelly, I'm looking at
It
you.
makes me so nervous.
It's so
when you do
nervous. This is the future.
We're in
But
the future.
Magic
Say it
the
and cut
Gathering
it out later.
has Strixhaven, which is the same thing, a magical college with different things that competing houses and whatnot, and its own sports teams and things like that. So tons of stuff that you will be able to use in homebrew adjacent campaigns like that.
Wow.
Exciting.
This is a supplementary book.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, coming this fall.
Yep. Yep. Lots of
You guys
fun.
are crushing
You will-
it. How long
you
have
will
we're
love
still-
it.
How
You'll
long have
love
you
it.
guys been at D&D at Wizards?
I've been
Forever.
here 6 years, which feels like a long time, but then Shelly's going to be like,
20 something.
What?
I know.
That's
I know. I
amazing.
do feel like there was a chunk of time that was just taken from me. That I remember nothing. And then I just opened my eyes and I was like, what? What year is it? How long have I been sitting at this desk? What's happening?
Goals, though. That is goals.
Gosh,
But
that's
it's
amazing.
Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't always work on D&D, but once I started on D&D, I was like, oh, I'm never going to find a better day job than this.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
I love the Waterdeep board game. It's like one of my favorite board games.
Me too.
Boards of
I'm like
Waterdeep is
freakishly
fantastic.
good at that game too.
Fun. Are you? Who do you play?
Yes.
Which it doesn't
I
matter.
can't. Oh gosh, I mean,
I play the
remember.
gray
It's been-
hands always.
I remember who
Always.
I.
I've got like 4 games going on right here. on
Oh,
my
really?
phone
I
right
haven't
now.
played the online version.
It's
only
good.
play-
It's good.
I've heard it's
small little things you do throughout the day, right? Like, oh, I'm going to make this move, blah, blah, blah. It's hard sometimes to be like, which game am I playing? But other than that, it's been great. It's been a great just pandemic game, right? That it's almost been
Yeah.
like my game of the year because I've just been like, oh, I can play board games throughout the day.
I love that. I don't know. There's something about it that I just really enjoy. I enjoy that you like what you can do is pretty limited, but it's still complex.
Mhm.
I guess. Like, I don't know. There's only so many actions, but how you, I don't know. I'm not explaining it well. I've stopped making sense.
If people haven't
Daniel
played it,
Day-Lewis, take me out.
oh, he's here. Okay, never mind. We got to go. We're gonna reset for Daniel
Oh.
Day-Lewis and Jennifer Aniston. Thanks, guys.